All right, Shoebridge, I've made this video a couple of times now. The conclusion I've come to is, as a result of all my testing, is that I have no clear idea how to make a test. But it's not to say we can't learn something from our experiments. So let's try it one more time. Here's how I've got it set up. I turn the Muse on, I've let it warm up a few minutes. We're in an initial patch. This is the filter settings I used. There you can see we are more or less tuned. So there's middle C. So let's take a look at the setup here. The rate's all the way down. These things are down. So we're going to stay on 4 foot. This is at 0. And I put this all the way over here. And I found that after making a whole bunch of tests that you had to exercise this thing. And if you were doing that, after you've done that, and I've used these settings here, this is all the way to the left, and this is in the middle. And this is set to 0. And I'm just using this one oscillator here. I've turned these clocks and all that kind of just so they're not blinking on us. And this is the deal here, the cutoff. So you get nothing if you turn this all the way up. Envelope amount. And I left this in serial. That turns it off. I don't think this does any. Okay, and you can see that it's got one. If I play a key, any key, that we just have one instance. If I play two keys, now you get two things going. So I've put the envelopes like this, and the output's about like that into my sound card, and those low cuts off, and that's about all I can. And that's set this about like that, and so that's pretty much all I can think of. And now for the moment, I guess we ought to use C. And let's use, okay, so. Hope you can see that. I just did the wave mix. So if I move this, I'm just going to do it like at 3 o'clock, or 9 o'clock, sorry. And I'll do it straight up. And that's at 3 o'clock. And that's all the way over. And I'll put that in the middle. And I guess if we went all the way over here, and swept through them. And it doesn't do anything because we're all the way over. So if we're in the middle and we have them both in the middle, and then we sweep one. All right, so I guess that's it for now. And we'll draw our conclusions from here. 32 feet. Yeah, so 32 feet. I'm going to put the lights on in here. It's raining today here.
I'd really like to get a little bit of a wider consensus on this. And
a wider consensus. Well, who wouldn't want that?
you know, I really would like to carry on.
Really, Giles, must you? Carry on. Oh, okay. There, we've got, what is it? Oh, yes, 32 feet. That, I tell you this, is a square wave. And it's at 0. And you can kind of hear it. And that's what it looks like. And I don't know why it's wiggling up and down. I'm not really a scopioid. And that's the 16-foot square. You can see at the end of the day that that's a square. Now these are discrete. Now that is the down ramp. And there it is. And there's some wiggle to this, but I got a lot of line out here. And there's your triangule. And there's the sine wave. Now this, which is my favorite feature, and actually it was young Master Shoebridge that clued me into these 55 mods. And this is absolutely the bomb. This auxiliary output. This is a separate output. You can still use these, but if you're, for example, using the output, if we switch this to the sine wave, we could jack this up because the sine wave is the fundamental and nothing else, and these are all whatever they are and way more because of the harmonic series and all that. Nobody can hear this, but with this circuit, you can jack that up, and now you've got a sine wave that people can hear. And then you can do whatever you want with it. But having a separate out, and you can select any of these forms, that makes this really cool. And he really went out of his way to explain this clamping circuit. So I really like that guy, and he's a tremendous explainer, and probably has a 12-cylinder Jaguar. But the thing is that these are discrete waveforms, and the Muse and the Voyager are not discrete waveforms. They are kind of, I don't know what to call this. They're shiftable, they're mutable, they are sweepable, they are going one to the other. The interactions of these pots affects the waveforms in different ways than just having a separate circuit for each discrete waveform. Sine, what's that? Triangle, down ramp. We can see now what the basic discrete, if you like, waveforms are. And with these, I made a little thing about these. So you're kind of just comparing not apples to oranges, but oranges to tangerines, sort of thing. And now we'll try and look at the Muse. Richard Birds, here it is. Here's a Moog, Moog. And I just made the preset. I'm going to dust this off. I have not used this in. So here's our initial preset. That's how you do it. So you don't have to watch that video. I made another video called I Bought a Chug when I was super pissed because the thing they sent me was a piece of crap for $4,000 US. And none of those pricks that, that shill all this stuff, they had failed to point out that this was actually made by people in Taiwan or China or whereversville, not people in that tried to unionize in Georgia or wherever that place is, Carolina. And this is on the Voyager because the Voyager, presumably this unit here, the Muse, is using the same type of architecture, do we want to call it that, as this product here, the Voyager. That was their advertising anyway. And here you've got, now if we put the filter release all the way to 10 and the rest of it all the way to 0, is it? Yes. See, with the release all the way over, this doesn't do anything. The amount of the filter doesn't. But this is the default patch in here. And then you have to put the sustain up on the envelopes, both the filter and the volume. And then you can adjust the output so that you've got you're in the right division, which is 0.1 over here. And this should be roughly 5 volts. So if I brought this down, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, half a volt, basically. So you've got 5 divisions. So you're in the same scale kind of thing. Domain of measure. So with that being said, if we come over here, we want to, and that's as square as it gets on the Voyager. So If we look up here, we can go the frequency. So we can make it there. Okay, so that's at 0. Now the octave, weirdly enough, doesn't make much of a difference on this. That's the 32 foot, which is the lowest one, right? There's the next one. That's the same shape. Now that's the 16. That's the 32. It's exactly the same shape. It's just the frequency is different, which is real nice. Now let's see if we can spread this one out some. That actually looks a little better, huh? Crikey. Yeah, that's the 4 foot. And I remember the 4 foot looked better on the Muse too. That's the 8 foot. And you can see that now we have a little more voltage on the top end, on the leading edge. Sorry, that's the 8 foot. But there it is. That's your square wave. So that's your 50% duty. And there it morphs into almost nothing, but you'd still be able to hear that if we were listening. And now you're all the way to the triangle wave. And you can see that it's, whoops, I'm on the wrong one again. Where's my finger? There it is. So, you could say, oh, that's a little bit out, but you don't care. I don't anyway. I mean, so now that's going square. That's the triangle. And that's your sawtooth right there. So that's what it looks like. And I don't know what that little dip is on the top. That's probably just, probably just me. And to my ears, this thing sounds pretty good. I really like the spacing thing. That's what really sold me on this. Plus it's got a mono end that's audio, and I can do the spacing with 2 filters, this filter that's split up. So you get a left-right thing. This is actually stereo out. Very cool. So we'll look at the Muse here in a minute and see if... And that's your triangle. I mean, it looks like a triangle to me. And we'll turn it to like right there. And now that should be on the square. That looks like the Voyager to me. Okay, that's the pulse width. And that's pretty square. That's a lot more square. So you can kind of build it out however you want it or need it. And that's a triangle. And this is my scope that's doing that. That being said, when I first got this, I had terrible problems with it, with tuning, with you name it, any number of things. But now after revision 3 or whatever, it is pretty stable for the most part. I still have trouble if I'm changing patches and there's, you're playing along and you want to have a different patch. So you hit here. It still has like a kind of, it makes a terrible noise. Not like every one of them used to do it. And now only a couple of them do it from time to time kind of thing. But it's not reliable. You still can't reliably change from one patch to another. I mean, it's way better than it was. And the filter thing is so bitchin'. And this, I was all, a digital delay, But it's really pretty amazing. And this will do so much. And it's already here at the house. It'd be such a hassle to try and, I practically killed myself wrestling it in the door. I'd have to hire somebody to box it up and send it back. It's just not worth it. I get a reliable looking square, waveform on it. I think, that these are adjustable. I don't even know what they call it. Mixable waves. There you go. Is it folding? Is it morphing? Is it wave switching? Or do they add together? What happens? We don't know. But they do sound pretty cool most of the time. The whole sequencing and the programming parameters is, obviously carried over for this. And this was like 10 times more than I could ever deal with. I'll scratch half of 1% of this in the next 10 years that I own it type of thing. I hope you clearly understood that these discrete waveforms are going to be different than folders. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with these particular waves here. Whether or not they sound scratchy or fuzzy, I don't know, but patch to patch, it sounds pretty good.